Good morning and welcome to How to Fly a Plane. Today I would like to show you how to perform a traffic pattern, which is probably the first mission you will undertake as solo pilots. To carry out our practical demonstration, we will be using the Piper Archer 2 model by Coronado on Microsoft Flight Simulator 2020. This is a single-engine aircraft produced by Piper Aircraft, equipped with low wing, no retractable landing gear, a fixed-pitch propeller, making it a very simple and suitable machine for beginners. Firstly, let's begin with the checklist, ensuring that all circuit breakers are engaged, avionics are all turned off, and the fuel selector is on one of the main tanks. At this point, we could perform the passenger briefing, but since we have no passengers, let's proceed. Battery on, mixer rich, turn on the electric fuel pump and open the throttle. Give 2 or 3 Palmer pumps, ensuring the temperature isn't too low. Before starting the engine, turn on the anti-collision lights. Check that the propeller area is clear to the left and to the right. The area is clear. Now we can start the engine. Check that the oil pressure is in the green arc and the oil temperature is rising. Turn on the alternator and ensure it's supplying current using the ammeter. We can turn on the avionics now. Today, we won't be using any avionics, so we will simply leave the GPS on the map. We can now begin our taxi to the holding point for runway 16. During taxi, verify that the instruments respond appropriately during left and right turns, specifically the turn coordinator and the heading indicator. As we can see, in this case, the indications are indeed consistent. And you want to test the brakes. Brakes responded correctly. Usually, during this phase of taxi, we also perform the takeoff briefing. A good takeoff briefing should contain all the necessary information regarding both normal operations and emergency procedures, defining what actions we intend to take and what countermeasures we will apply in case of problems. Now I'll perform what is usually my standard briefing for takeoff from runway 16 at Biella Airport. We will depart from Biella Airport on runway 16, which is 1,320 meters long, with dry asphalt. The takeoff will be in takeoff configuration with 1 notch of flap. Rotation will be at 65 knots. In case of problems before rotation, we will pull the throttle and apply brakes to stop on the runway. In case of problems after rotation with remaining runway, we will land immediately back on the field, while if there is no remaining runway, we will be forced to continue the takeoff. In case of a minor malfunction, we will try to resolve it in flight, while in case of engine failure, we will be forced to perform an emergency landing on a field to the left of the airport. After takeoff, we will continue in a right circuit for runway 16, 11 knots at 2,000 feet. We stop at the holding point, and we perform the engine run-up, which must be done before every flight. So, following the checklist, set parking brake, gently bring the engine to 2000 RPM, and we perform the magnetos check. Maximum drop 175 RPM. Bring back both. Maximum drop 175 RPM, and maximum difference between right and left magnetos 50 RPM. Verify that there is in fact vacuum system depression. The engine temperature is in the green arc and the pressure is in the green arc. Diameter is supplying current. Then we perform the mixture check with the cutoff. Turn on the electric pump. We switch tanks. We can bring the engine back to around 1000 RPM, leaving the pump on for takeoff. Landing light on. Set the flaps to 1 notch. Before takeoff, quickly review the checklist. Battery and master switch on, alternator switch on, magnetos both on, flight instruments all selected, fuel selected on the fuelless tank, electric fuel pump on, landing light on, engine all in the green arc, carburetor heat off, mixture rich, seats adjusted and locked, seat belts fastened, flaps set to 1 notch, trim centered, controls free, door locked. Before takeoff checklist completed. And we are ready for departure. We follow the yellow line. Then we leave it to make better use of the runway. Align with the runway center line. And we check that the heading indicator agrees with the compass. Power up, and we release the brakes. Always right foot, because the aircraft will tend to veer left. Speed is alive. $50, $60, $65 and rotate. We are airborne, maintaining a speed of around 76 knots. And at 300 feet above ground level, we can retract flaps. At about 500 feet above ground level, reduce power to 2500 RPM for climb. We check where we are. We can start our right turn to reach the right downway for runway 16. We perform the post takeoff checklist, which in this case simply means turning off the landing light and the electric pump. Paying attention to the altitude, we know we need to level off at 2000 feet. We don't need to gain speed in this phase, so at 2000 feet we level off and immediately reduce power without accelerating the aircraft. Check again that we are in the right position. Turn right again to enter the downwind. We take a heading parallel to the runway, around 340 in this case. And we can immediately start configuring the aircraft. So, fuel pump on with 1 notch of flaps. This is also an excellent moment to perform our approach and landing briefing. It will be a landing in full flap configuration with an approach speed of 76 knots on runway 16 at Biella, 1,320 meters long, dry asphalt. If we need to go around, we'll re-enter the right circuit for runway 16, leveling off at 2,000 feet. Let's also take this opportunity to read our approach and landing checklist. Fuel selector, we can keep this tank. Seats adjusted and locked in position, seat belts fastened. Electric fuel pump on. Lights will turn the landing light on final. Mixture, keep it rich. Flap, we have extended the first notch. Now we travel along the downwind, checking all our parameters. When we are perpendicular to the runway threshold, start the timer. In our case, 1000 feet AGL, so about 30 seconds. Remember, the good rule of thumb to know how many seconds to continue the downwind is 3 seconds for every 100 feet above ground level. So a normal circuit at 1000 feet AGL would be 30 seconds. If we were at 500 feet AGL, it would be half, 15 seconds. Or even visually, when the runway threshold is about 45 degrees from our tail, it's time to make the turn. After 30 seconds, we turn on to base and start the descent. Second notch of flap. Without making the aircraft descend too steeply, maintain around 500 feet per minute of vertical speed. Always keeping an eye on the runway. With a bit of anticipation to avoid overshooting the runway center line, turn right for final. Turn on the landing light and extend full flap. We slow the aircraft to just over 75 knots while continuing to descend. Now perform our final checks. Landing light on, full flap, mixture rich. And we slow the aircraft gradually. When we are sure we'll reach the runway, reduce engine power completely, aiming for the numbers. When we are close enough to the ground, we begin our flare. Pull gently on the yoke, allowing the aircraft to almost stall onto the runway. Maintain back pressure onto the yoke so that control surfaces provide drag to slow the aircraft down. Once our speed decreases below 50 knots, you can gently apply the brakes. After vacating the runway, we stop and perform the post-landing checks. Retract the flaps, turn off the electric pump and the landing light, laying the mixture for taxi, and we perform the after landing checklist. Flaps retracted, electric fuel pump off, mixture laid for taxi, landing light off. Landing checklist completed. We are now ready to continue our taxi to the parking area. After coming to a stop, we can shut down the engine and secure the aircraft. Avionics master off, mixture cut off, and we wait for the engine to stop. Turn off the magnetos, alternator, anti-collision lights, and the battery. Thank you for following along. This is How to Fly a Plane. If you liked this video, please like it, and if you didn't, feel free to dislike. For any questions, doubts or concerns, please write them in the comments. Thank you and goodbye.